Okay, let's take a look at assignment 2, question number 2. This asks you to do various forecasting techniques. Let's take a look. Some of these are a little harder than others, but I guess I'll just start right up at the top here. So we'll take get the data first thing. And I always tell my students that the first thing you want to do when you get a data set is to visualize it. So we want to take a look at what this time series looks like um, by just drag your mouse over these values, go to Insert, and then do a line chart. So this will show you that over time, this is how these sales change. So we don't really have enough periods here to observe any kind of cycles or seasons. There may be a trend that started in May, but certainly the whole thing doesn't have a kind of a long-term trend. So it might be that the naive method that's going to work best here is to just go ahead with the last value. And so the first question says, forecast September sales volume using the naive approach. And so that's what you would do, because we don't really have anything else to go on. We'll just go with that last value. Okay. The second part asks for a 5-month moving average. So we can go ahead and generate the the full series here. That's going to be MA5, so moving average of period 5. And we have to center the moving averages so that each window of 5 observations, we're going to center it on those 5. So this will be the average of these 5. Okay. And then because Excel lets you do this, we'll just drag this down. And I think, yeah, the last one should be right there, centered. So we're going to lose 2 from the beginning and then 2 from the end. And so that right there will be our forecast, the last element of that 5-period moving average, so 17.2. Okay, so now the next part asks for a weighted average. Now, don't be afraid to add stuff to your spreadsheet. So what I like to do a lot is to just put screenshots in so that I can keep an eye on things, like I don't have to remember. So this is going to be our weighted average. And for this, we don't have to figure out every single element because we just have to, we're going to weight August by 0.65, July by 0.1, and then 0.25 for June. So that's a little bit backwards. Usually you want to have lighter weights for the further ones away, but okay, fine. So we're going to do, so for this is the period we're forecasting, right? We're interested in September. So in order to do this, we're going to have to take, let's say, 0.65 times August plus 0.1 times July plus 0.25 for June, and that should give us a 21.05. Okay. Now with exponential smoothing, this gives us an opportunity to configure how responsive we want to be to changes. So that smoothing constant that we abbreviate with alpha actually is a way of controlling how responsive you want to be to errors in your previous forecast. Now, those of you who had me for 333, we used a slightly different exponential smoothing, but if you look mathematically, it's actually exactly the same, but we're doing it a little bit different because we're going period by period. So, all right, let's take a look at, so we want exponential smoothing with a constant equal to 0.25. I like to keep the textbook open here. So this is the page on exponential smoothing. And it explains how to do it. Basically, every forecast, you're going to take the previous forecast and then multiply it by your smoothing constant, alpha, times how far off your last forecast was. So you parameterize how responsive you want to be to that error. And this error here, the actual minus the previous forecast, is that amount of error. So the actual formula for that is going to be, each T here represents the row or the period that you're on. So for each particular T, you're going to take the previous forecast, right? So T minus 1 plus the smoothing constant times the error. So it's going to be the actual. So this is what you observed in the previous period. And you're going to subtract what you forecasted for the previous period. So to keep track of that, I'm just going to I'm just going to copy and paste this into the spreadsheet again, like to have it all right there where I can see it. So we're going to create a new series here, which we're just going to call F. And okay, so let's read the question closely, because sometimes you have to be really careful about where you're, what period you're starting with. Okay, so assuming a March forecast of 15. So so what that means is that we forecasted for March a 15. So that means our March forecast was actually off by 0, right? Because if we're multiplying the actual, if we're subtracting the forecast from the actual, this is going to be 0. So our new forecast is just going to be equal to the previous period's forecast. But that won't continue as we go further down the periods. All right, so this one should be then, okay, we're going to take the previous forecast, which is 15. So we just go up one row, that's yt minus 1. Plus and alpha. Actually, you know what? Let me put alpha up here. I'm going to make it so that I can just click a box. So alpha will be 0.25. Okay, so this is going to be f sub t minus 1 plus alpha times the error. So the actual t minus 1 is here. So we're going up one row. Okay, and then subtracting what we forecasted for the previous period, which was here. Okay, and I can just do that again. The reason why that's 15 again is because this wound up being 0 because we had 0 error. Let me do one more period, then I'm going to just copy the whole thing down. So okay, so again, so now this row is our t, and we're going to do previous forecast plus our smoothing constant times our error. And so this time we did have a little bit of error because our actual was 8 and our forecast was 15. Okay, now I'm just going to copy this down, but in order to make this work, I have to make sure this is an absolute reference to this alpha over here. So I'm just going to I'll just put $signs in there to make it an absolute reference. Okay, and so now all I have to do is just drag this down, and so it will do the same thing. It will keep copying it and just sliding it down one window. So in the end, if we round to 2 decimal places, which we're instructed to do, let me just do that now. Okay, so this is our forecast for the next period. Okay, so notice that what's actually happening is we are changing our forecast based on a certain weight applied to our error. So exponential smoothing allows us to configure how responsive we want to be to previous mistakes. Okay, so there's the exponential smoothing part of that. Okay, and then the last part asks you to find a linear trend. Now, in the book, it gives you, the formula for calculating the intercept and the coefficient. We're not going to do that. That's too tedious. We have Excel do that for us. So since we have this chart here, this line chart, if we click on the line and then just so that these dots have these small circles on them, right click and do add a trend line. So this actually does the regression. It fits that line, and those of you who took my 333 class know that this is kind of a shortcut for regression. So if we click on the line and then go to display equation on chart, this shows us the linear fit. So this gives us the regression equation. So the intercept is 1.07 and the intercept is 12.86 and the slope is 1.07. So we can just add these to our sheet and then use that to plug in we're just going to plug in the period. Now let's go ahead and assign period. So the way this worked was in the regression equation, it just assigned these sequential periods like this. So I'll continue this down. So in fact, our next period, the one that we want to forecast for, is going to be period 9. So we have 8. Or no, sorry. We're gonna substitute in period 8 because we have 7 periods, and then our next period will be period 8. So let me just put in here this is where the coefficient will go, and this is where the value will go. So the coefficient here, we'll put our intercept. The intercept is 12.86. Got that from the regression equation right there. And next to the intercept, we're just going to put a 1. So the slope is going to be 1.07. And the value we're going to put in here is 8, because that's the next period we want to forecast. So to use this linear trend for forecast, we're just going to do the intercept. We're just basically going to plug 8 into this equation here, or this formula. So 12.86 plus this slope times the next period, which is 8, and that gives us a forecast of 21.42 for the next period. Okay, so we've got naive approach, moving average, weighted moving average, exponential smoothing, and linear trend. And notice they all give us slightly different ones, and of course which one works best is going to be context specific. Okay, hope that helps.